And what he says is there's this guy named Pharaoh. Well, Pharaoh was the ruler in Egypt. Let me give you the backdrop of Egypt. Everything that God creates, Satan counterfeits. God is creator, Satan is counterfeiter. God has a kingdom, and then Satan counterfeits it with different nations. And the Bible will call this a world system. This is where economics, politics, religion, spirituality, ideology, education all comes together into one unified system. In the Old Testament, there's places like Babylon. We looked at that last year when we went through the book of Daniel. It includes in Paul's day, in which he's writing, the nation of Rome. It existed in the Old Testament in a nation called Egypt, and it still exists today, even in places like America. Places like America, where everything is working together against God. Everything is working together against God. The most powerful nation in the days of the Old Testament was Egypt. And it was ruled by a king called a Pharaoh, and he was literally declared to be the son of the gods. So it was a counterfeit. So ultimately in their family, their kingdom was to replace God's kingdom, and the son of the king was to replace Jesus Christ, the Son of God and the King of Kings. It was all a demonic counterfeit. And what happens in this, the book of Exodus records the conflict between God's kingdom and this counterfeit kingdom. Over the course of 40 years, it is the recording of the most supernatural activity in all of human history. And so within this, it's this conflict between the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness. It's ultimately this conflict between the real God and the false God. It's this conflict between that which is spiritual and of the Holy Spirit and that which is demonic and counterfeit. And so God's got real leaders and rulers, and Egypt's got counterfeits. There's real priests, and there's pagan priests. And there's angels at work, and there's demons at work. And ultimately, these kingdoms are in collision and conflict. This continues in every single age, including our own. It's why right now, if you come against God, you will get boosted on social media, and if you come in the name of God, you will get throttled on social media. It's all spiritual, and it's kingdoms in conflict continuously. And so what happens as well is that there are miracles and counterfeit miracles. Just because there's power doesn't mean it's God's power. It could be counterfeit and demonic power. So these two nations are in collision. And the ultimate fight is between this Pharaoh and the real God. And the fight is over who the real God is. So what happens in Exodus chapter 5, verse 2, the Pharaoh who ruled and reigned as King of Kings and Lord of Lords and was worshiped as God, and he's the fake Jesus on earth. He says this, God shows up and God speaks and says, you are not the real king, I am. Your kingdom is not the most powerful, mine is. You don't get to tell my people what to do, only I get to tell my people what to do, and while I'm at it, I get to tell you what to do. Well, the demonic, counterfeit, unbelieving king and kingdom was very unrelenting. So the Pharaoh says this in Exodus 5:2. Who is the Lord? You're like, who is this God I never heard of? See, because what Pharaoh thought was, I'm powerful, God's people are powerless. I'm the king and they're the slaves. Their God can't be bigger than me. I rule over them. He's like, who is this God I've never heard of? That I should obey his voice. Why should I let God tell me what to do? See, Pharaoh's an American. I'm my own person. I'm my own authority. Nobody can tell me what to do. Okay? So ultimately, it continues. Why should I obey his voice and let the people go? He says, I do not know the Lord. Ask your friends, do you know the Lord?